أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Today inshallah we are going to start off with prepositions, and in Arabic they form the jar majrur fragment, which I have already alluded to very briefly in our previous introductory video. Alright, so before proceeding, of course, let's just get acquainted with the terminologies. First of all, we have the harf jar, which is your Arabic equivalent of the prepositions, all right, in English. So in English, for example, if you have the words such as from or upon, on, in, at, all right, all of these are prepositions in English. Their Arabic equivalents are called harf jar, okay, and for singular it's harf jar. Okay, now whenever you see a harf jar, it's going to be followed by an ism in majrur or jar form. Okay, you are going to find some instances where you are going to find these harf jar followed immediately by a verb. In that case, it would be called as a phrasal verb. Okay, and we will study that when we get to the field section, inshallah. All right, so jar and majrur. All right, let's begin with our lesson. All right, so in the 6th lesson of catch up series, we did 2 situations where an ism is supposed to be in jar form, all right, or simply ism majrur is present. So what those situations were, we studied. First of all, the ism is either going to be a mudaf ilayh, which simply means the possessor. For example, Baitullahi. Right here, the word Allah is the possessor, therefore it's called mudaf ilayh, and it's in jar form, as you can see. Right. Similarly, Kitabul Waladi. Here, the boy is the possessor, therefore it is jar, and of course it's called mudaf ilayh. All right. So this is what, now this is a fragment muzaf ilayh, and inshallah we will cover it shortly, but right now in this very lesson our focus is the jar majrur fragment. Okay, so let's study a couple of examples. Yeah, okay, for example, min baitin. Now min is our preposition. How do we know that? Well, there's a list and I will give you that list, and you need to memorize these prepositions. Okay, and whenever you see a preposition, immediately following that preposition would be an ism in jar form, which you can very well see here. Okay, so min baitin. Now for example, if this was from 2 houses, then what would it be? It would have been min baitaini. Remember, this has to be jar, so the jar form of musanna is baitaini, remember, or ani aini aini, tani taini taini. All right, so this is going to be baitaini and not min baitani. Min baitani would be wrong, because the word baitani is rafa and we need a jar form with a harf jar, so it's going to be min baitaini. Okay, I hope you're clear on that front. Okay, our second example is this. We have already covered the pronouns, and as you can see here, I've written minhu. We have the same preposition, min, right? But it has been attached with the jar form of pronoun, which, as you can see here, is who. All right, and it would translate to min. It would translate to from him or from it, minhu. Okay, we are going to cover these kinds of jar majrur fragments as well, where the majrur is going to be your pronoun. Okay, all right, now let's cover our prepositions. Now the first thing that you need to be clear on is that there are many meanings for each of these prepositions. Okay, there are multiple meanings, and with each usage this meaning differs, but the most commonly used meanings are the ones that I have elaborated or enumerated over here. Okay, so all these about, upon, from, these are various ways or various meanings of the same preposition an. All right, and it's going to be very obvious from the content which meaning you need to take. Okay, so don't worry about so many multiple meanings. Don't worry about them. It's going to be very obvious to you. Okay, so let's start off with our prepositions. Our first preposition is fi. It means in. For example, fil bayti. As you can notice, this is jar, this is majrur. Okay, then we have ila. It means towards or till, and for example, ilal bayti, towards the house. Then we have min, we just did it. It means from, and for example, min al bayti, from the house. Okay. Next we have an. It has multiple meanings such as about, upon, or from, and of course the context is what you are going to take into consideration in order to take the appropriate meanings for this word. So anil fashai, for example, would be from vulgarity. All right. Then we have ala. It means over, upon, at, or on. Okay, and the most common thing that we all recite is our Darud Sharif. So we have ala Muhammadin. All right, Muhammadin. Alayhi salatu wassalam. Right. Next we have hatta. Hatta means till or until. For example, hatta hinin, till a specified time. Okay. All right. Next we have ma'a. It means with. For example, ma'al usri, with the difficulty comes ease. Okay, now we will get to that part as well, because that would form a sentence, and how we can differentiate between a sentence is something that we are going to learn after this last fragment in this series. Okay, all right. Then we are going to study this lam, li. If it is a harf jar, it means for. Okay, now there are three different kinds of lam that we are going to study. All right, but each of them give us different meaning to the word or the fragment they're being used in. Okay, so one of those three types of lam is this li, the one with kasra, and it means for. And how are you going to know about this thing? Is that it's going to cause its majrur to be in, it's going to cause its ism to be in majrur form. For example, for Zaid, li Zaidin. Okay, that's how you're gonna differentiate. All right. Next you have this particle, or simply harf, ka. It means like or similar to. For example, ka masalin. All right, it is very widely used in Quran Pak. You're going to find it somewhere. In fact, you're going to find it very frequently, as a matter of fact. All right, similar to the example or like the example. Ka masalin. All right. Next, we have the particles for taking an oath. All right, so let me encircle them. First of all, we have the particle ta, then we have the particle wa, then bi. Right, these three particles are used to take an oath. All right, now out of these three, the thing that I would want you to remember about the is that this one is reserved only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so you cannot use the particle ta for taking an oath by something other than Allah. Okay, um if you want to use this particle ta for taking an oath, then it has to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by whom you are taking that oath. Okay, this is reserved exclusively for an oath by Allah. Okay, all right. This thing is not true for these two. Okay, so if you want to take an oath by Allah or by something else, you can use wa as well as ba. Yeah, I'm sorry, wa as well as b. Okay, but such restriction that we observed for ta is not present for the particles of wa and b. Okay, so let me rephrase it and sum it up once again. If you want to use the particle the, then the only thing that you can, or the only being that you can take an oath by is Allah. All right, if you want to take an oath by something else, you have to decide between wa and b. All right, that's what the is only for Allah. And if you want to take an oath by anything else as well as Allah, then you can use either wa or b. That is it. Okay, so this is the only thing that you need to remember. B. Now, as you can see, apart from an oath, this harf B has many other meanings. And now these are the most common ones. There are many other meanings for this B that I haven't written here. Okay, but these are the most common ones that you have to know. For example, with, in, due to, via, along with, at. It also forms a phrasal verb, okay, which we are going to address later on, and we have already covered this whole thing. Okay, for example, bi qalamin, with a pen, bil ghaibi, in the unseen. Okay, so we are done with our prepositions. You need to remember these, okay, and memorize these really well. Okay, before moving on, we need to just observe a couple of things. When you are joining a harf jar with the ism right next to it, what are you going to do? There are some changes that you need to be aware of and be wary of. Okay, whenever you are going to join this ila or ala with the next word, this fatha, this khari fatha that you see here, okay, it's going to be changed into a regular fatha, as you can see. Let me zoom it up. Okay, like this. Okay, this is gonna happen. This khari zabar becomes this regular zabar. And why? Because well, this one can join with the next letter, but this one can't. Okay, this one can, this one can. And same is the case for anything that ends in this khari zabar. Okay, therefore I said that it is also used for Allah. This zabar also becomes this regular zabar. Okay, or zabar is also called as fatha. Okay, all right, next we need to see what happens with the preposition min. It's sukoon. All right, the noon has a sukoon, and this sukoon becomes a fatha whenever we need to join it with the next word, minal baiti. Okay, and if we have the preposition an, we replace its sukoon with a kasra. Okay, anil fahsha'i. And if it is fi and we need to join this fi with the next word, we simply omit, or just let it go. We just omit this entire sukoon altogether, so we are left with this fil baiti. Okay, so these were our mechanics of joining some harf jar with the ism. Okay, now this is a bit important, and these things are actually quite obvious, and when you start off with making the jar majrur fragments that involve the pronoun as being the majrur portion of this fragment, you are obviously going to land up with these combinations. Okay, but there are a couple of important points that you need to know about these combos. Okay, so therefore I decided to include this table from the textbook by Professor Khalil Rahman Chishti. Okay, now as you can see, first of all, this first column is for the rafa pronouns. Okay, so you can see all of them: ana, nahnu, anta, anti, antuma, antum, antuna, huwa, hiya, huma, hum, hunna. All right, now of course we did not practice these pronouns in this order. We did the huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna, and then we went to the second person pronouns: anta, anti, and anta, antuma, antum, then anti, antuma, antuna, and then we went to do the first person pronouns ana and then anu. Okay, but he has kind of flipped this table. Anyways, then the second row, or rather the column, is for the pronouns that are jar. Now why jar and why not nasab? Because we are doing jar majrur, and obviously the pronoun has to be jar. Okay, not mansub. And you can see all of them. You can see the ya mutakallim, you can see the na, you can see ka, ki, kuma, kum, kunna, hu, ha, huma, hum, and hunna. All right, so there are some important points that you need to observe first before you start off with making the combos with these pronouns. Okay, what do you need to know? First of all, okay, we have our ya mutakallim, and we're going to divide this in three types. Okay, first of all, you can see that if you join, or rather if you make this jar majrur combo with the ya mutakallim, and your harf jar is B or li, is going to remain obviously the same way. Okay, because remember there are three kinds of ya mutakallim. You can either have ya with sakoon, but in this case it has to bear it has to be preceded with a letter that carries a kasra. All right, and then there is a type of ya mutakallim that is like this. Okay, and then there is a ya mutakallim that has a noon wiqaya with it, and that is for your haruf and fail. Okay, so we're not concerned with this form just as yet. These two are our major forms that we are concerned with. Okay, so you can see that if you join this ya with B or li, then of course it's going to be li and B. Quite obvious. Okay, let's look at the next ones. Then we have a jar majrur fragment with fi. What happens? We have our fi, okay, and we add it with ya mutakallim. What does it become? Fiya. Why? Because this ya and this ya fuse together and we get landed with fiya, as you can see here. Okay, same thing happens here with Allah and illa. Okay, Allah and illa. So what happens is that you have Allah, and I told you before that if you want to join it with the next word, what happens? You replace this fatha with regular fatha. All right, so it becomes this these two yas fused together. All right, once again, and it becomes alayya. Okay, similarly ilayya. All right, then we have our sakoon bearing harf jar, for example min and an. So what happens is quite simple. Min. All right, and all right, now minni or anni. Why? Because this thing does not carry, the last letter does not carry a kasra. All right, so we add this noon wiqaya that carries this. Okay, and when these two noons fuse, it becomes minni, anni. All right, that's what. So you can see that there are different versions of each of the jar majrur fragment whenever a majrur is your ya mutakallim. Okay, li, bi, fiya, alayya, ilayya, and then your minni and anni. All right, next I would want you to look at this. Whenever your harf jar is going to be li and it forms a jar majrur fragment with ya mutakallim, it's going to be li, right? It was obvious. However, for the rest of the majrur majrur pronouns, you are going to notice that this li becomes la, because you see it's lana, laka, laki, lakuma, lakum, lakunna, lahu, laha, lahuma, lahum, lahunna. Why? Because it is easier to say lana than saying lina, laka instead of saying lika, right? Or liki or likuma. It's not too easy, right? So that's the reason this thing, this lam bears a fatha instead of a kasra. In the remaining pronoun jar majrur fragments, okay, with ya mutakallim it remains as such, okay, in its default state, li. So this is what you need to know. Okay, and finally, just a revision of the previous concept that we studied in the nasab or jar pronouns, that whenever you have an attached ha, all right, here in the musanna, in your hum, all right, in your masculine and feminine jama, all right, whenever you're going to find that the letter right behind this attached ha is carrying the sound of e, then it is also going to carry a kasra instead of its default sound of u. All right, so the default sound of an attached hamza is, I'm sorry, of an attached ha is dhamma, all right, or pesh, but it can carry a kasra if the letter right behind it, or the sound exactly right behind it, is that of E. Okay, so here we have fi he, therefore you can see that we have the sound of E right behind it. Okay, so it's going to be fi he and not fi hu. Similarly, it's going to be fi hima and not fi huma. Why? Because of the preceding sound right before this ha is E. So fi hima, not fi huma. Similarly, it's going to be fi him, not fi hum. It's going to be fi hinna, not fi hunna. Okay, and you can observe this thing over here as well with bihi, and even with ilayhi, with alayhi too. Okay, because the sound right behind or right before this attached ha is E. Alayhi. Okay, ilayhi, that's what. Okay, and yeah, this thing cannot be observed with minhu and anhu. Why? Because the sound right behind the attached ha is that of a sakoon, minhu. Okay, so that's why. All right, so I think we are done with this. All right, so we know all these combinations and the peculiar points regarding each of these that needed to be discussed. So we have discussed all these, alhamdulillah. And now comes a little exercise for you. Just pause the screen and complete this table, and you can find the answers in the next screen. Alright, so I hope that all of you got all these correct, and I would urge you to go to the group and solve these worksheets as well. And then inshallah tomorrow we are going to cover the next topic about harf nasab. Alright, and with that I'll take your leave. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'anil Hakim. Allah Hafiz.